This is not just a new year in the chronology of humanity. This is a year that rewrites the spine of history, erases the boundaries between eras and races, from under the sand what was never supposed to be seen. The world is used to thinking that the past is silent, but it speaks louder than archives. And today, its voice sounds colder than stone. Millennial structures are shifting. The shadows of ancient civilizations are once again connected into a single line. And each find shines like a crack in the familiar picture of the world. What were considered small fragments of history turn out to be signals capable of tearing apart official science. Before us is not just archaeology. Before us are 7 revelations that change the rules of the game. On the southern slope of the dried-up Wadi Rum riverbed, where a team from the University of Jordan was conducting routine work in a layer of the early Nabatean era, everything seemed predictable. Sand, fragments of pottery, short notes in field journals. But under the hard crust of a stone slab, they noticed a metal rim that at first seemed like an ordinary ring. Only after cleaning did silence come. Inside lay a miniature disc with an engraving that looked like a microcircuit from the middle of the 20th century. Thermoluminescence, dating stubbornly pointed to 200 BC. Skeptics spoke of a planted fake, but cameral records showed that the layer had not been opened since the moment of burial, and the metal itself was covered with a patina impossible for modern alloy. If this is a decoration, then this is the most perfect accidental analog of an electronic circuit board created 2,000 years before technology. Deep beneath the collapsed chamber of the medieval crypt in St. Maur, excavation teams were cataloging what should have been routine funerary debris from the late 12th century. Dust, bone fragments, fragments of devotional metalwork. Nothing hinted at disruption. Then, under a slab sealed with untouched mortar, they uncovered a lump of oxidized iron the size of a hand. It was logged as a common toolhead until the brushing revealed a perfect cylindrical housing with interior threading identical to modern camera lens mounts. When the corrosion was sampled, carbon residue fixed its last exposure to light at least 800 years ago. Skeptics insisted on intrusion, yet the crypt's masonry showed no breaches, and the oxidation was uniform with medieval metallurgy. If this is a tool, then it is the most precise but accidental imitation of optical mechanics, created centuries before its time. In the frozen chamber beneath Layer 7 of the Ust-Katan cave in Yakutia, researchers from the Siberian Institute of Paleogeography were calmly mapping permafrost strata dated to roughly 3,200 BCE. Tasks were predictable: measure, photograph, record. But when a technician removed a block of ice, a dark, geometric outline appeared inside, initially catalogued as a broken bone flute. When the ice, finally, cracked away, silence filled the chamber. The object was a hollow polymer tube with evenly spaced ridges identical to modern electrical conduit, complete with a spiraled inner channel that matched industrial standards from the 1,970 seconds. Radiocarbon dating on trapped organic fibers placed it firmly in the late Neolithic. Doubters claimed contamination, yet the permafrost had been sealed since formation, and micro-scratches on the surface showed ancient abrasion impossible for recent intrusion. If this is a simple tube, then it is the most impossibly precise copy of engineered conduit created 4,000 years before such designs existed. Beneath the basalt floor of the drowned sanctuary at Cape Matapan, where Mycenaean divers once left offerings to unknown gods, marine archaeologists were performing the usual sediment sweeps. Nothing promised surprise: pottery shards, bronze hooks, mineralized wood. Then a diver's lamp passed over what looked like a compressed lump of shell-encrusted lead. It was logged without interest, until desalination revealed a segmented structure, with a central pivot identical to a modern rotary switch. The copper traces inside matched the layout used in early electrical grids of the 1,920 seconds. Yet mineral accretion fixed the object's submersion at roughly 1,100 BCE. Critics argued the sea could carry anything, but the sanctuary's geometry formed a natural trap. Nothing larger than a coin ever drifted inside. Metallographic scans showed uniform ancient corrosion with no modern tool marks. If this is a ritual trinket, then it is the most flawless accidental replica of electrical hardware created 3 millennia before such ideas were born. During the survey of a sealed chamber beneath the Aksumite necropolis at Beta Georgis, researchers from Addis Ababa University were quietly documenting the basalt-lined corridors dated to the 4th century CE. Work moved with practiced monotony until a sarcophagus corner collapsed, exposing a soot-blackened object mistaken for a ceremonial weight. Once brushed clean, the team fell silent. Embedded in the stone was a compact, perfectly circular component with a recessed groove, identical to modern magnetic bearings. Cross-section showed a concentric alloy ring matching the geometry of 1,960 aerospace housings. Thermogravimetric tests on trapped resin placed its sealing at least 1,600 years ago. Skeptics claimed modern contamination, yet the tomb's entrance had been fused shut with ancient mortar, and micro-pitting across the metal matched long-term burial, not recent machining. If this is a mere ornament, then it is the most implausibly exact duplicate of engineered bearing technology produced more than a millennium before its invention. Inside the buried sanctuary of Cerro del Viento in northern Peru, a Wari-era complex untouched since the 9th century, archaeologists were carrying out standard stratigraphic clearing. Dust, textile fibers, obsidian flakes, everything behaved exactly as centuries predicted. Then, beneath a collapsed altar stone, they uncovered a charred metallic shard first catalogued as a shattered blade. But once the surface was stabilized, the team froze. The fragment held 3 parallel channels arranged with the precision of a modern heatsink plate, identical in spacing to industrial cooling modules from the late 20th century. Residue analysis locked its burial to around 840 CE. Skeptics argued coincidence, but the sanctuary's interior had remained hermetically sealed under a landslide, and the metal's microfractures displayed ancient stress patterns impossible to forge today. If this is a ritual fragment, then it is the most perfect unintentional prototype of thermal engineering, created 11 centuries before its age. In the lowest shaft of the Derin Kuyu underground city in Cappadocia, where air had not moved since the Phrygian period, a restoration team was documenting ventilation tunnels carved in the Meriend, 7th century BCE. Their routine was dull: map conduits, measure soot layers, photograph stone joints. But behind a collapsed basalt plug, they found a flattened bronze plate dismissed as a decorative fitting. When conservators lifted the incrustation, the chamber went silent. Etched into the metal was a grid of micro-grooves, identical to modern printed circuit board routing, complete with parallel traces spaced at 0.8 millimeters, a standard introduced only in the 1980 seconds. Metallurgy confirmed ancient casting, and the calcite rind encasing it required over 2,500 years to form. Claims of intrusion collapsed when scans showed the surrounding stone had never been disturbed. If this is ornamental engraving, then it is the most impossibly precise forerunner of circuit design.